The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson is more than a book with a provocative title. It's a counterintuitive guide to living a better, more meaningful life. Rather than doling out the usual self-help platitudes about positivity and endless striving, Manson's approach is refreshingly honest, blunt, and at times, irreverent. The core message cuts through the noise. Life is limited, and our time, energy, and attention are finite. Therefore, the art lies in learning what truly matters, and just as importantly, what does not. The book opens with a simple yet profound assertion. Not giving a fuck does not mean being indifferent to everything. On the contrary, it means being comfortable with being different, choosing carefully what to care about, and focusing your limited resources on things that align with your values. Manson argues that most people go through life giving too many fucks about things that don't truly matter. Social media, material success, other people's opinions. These are just a few of the distractions that can consume our attention and leave us feeling anxious or unsatisfied. Manson introduces the concept of the feedback loop from hell, which refers to the cycle where we feel bad about feeling bad. For example, we're anxious about being anxious or guilty about feeling guilty. This, he suggests, is a result of our culture's obsession with positivity and success. We're told we must always be happy, which leads us to obsess over our flaws and failures, compounding our suffering. The antidote, he says, is to accept that life is sometimes hard and uncomfortable, and that negative emotions are a natural part of the human experience. One of the book's central themes is the importance of embracing limitations. Manson cites the philosopher Alan Watts, who said, "You can't be an important and life-changing presence for some people without also being a joke and an embarrassment to others." In other words, if you care too much about how others perceive you, you'll never live authentically. Instead, you must accept that you have limited time, energy, and fucks to give, and that your choices will inevitably disappoint some people. The key is to choose what matters to you and let go of the rest. Manson's approach to values is uncompromising. He contends that much of our dissatisfaction comes from caring about superficial things, such as being the most popular, the wealthiest, or the most attractive. These external measures of success are fleeting and uncontrollable. True happiness, he writes, comes from focusing on values that are internal, sustainable, and within our control, like honesty, curiosity, and humility. By choosing better values, we can experience greater satisfaction and resilience in the face of life's inevitable challenges. Throughout the book, Manson uses stories from his own life and from history to illustrate his points. He recounts his struggles with anxiety, relationships, and career, showing that he, too, has grappled with the question of what to care about. He tells the story of Charles Bukowski, a writer whose tombstone reads, "Don't try." Manson explains that Bukowski's success came not from relentless striving, but from accepting his limitations and embracing his identity as an outsider. Rather than trying to fit in or impress others, Bukowski wrote honestly about his experiences, and in doing so, found his own path. Manson also addresses the myth of exceptionalism, the idea that we must all be extraordinary or special to be worthy. He argues that this belief sets us up for disappointment, because most people are, by definition, average in most areas of life. Instead of striving for unattainable greatness, we should accept our ordinariness and find meaning in the everyday. This does not mean giving up on improvement or ambition, but rather focusing on growth that aligns with our true values, rather than external validation. Another important principle in the book is the idea of responsibility. Manson makes a distinction between fault and responsibility. Often, we conflate the two, believing that if something is not our fault, we should not have to deal with it. But Manson argues that while we cannot always control what happens to us, we are always responsible for how we respond. This shift in perspective is empowering. It means that we are not victims of our circumstances, but active participants in shaping our lives. The author explores the power of saying no. In a world that constantly bombards us with options and opportunities, learning to say no is essential. By declining things that do not align with our values, we create space for what truly matters. This can be uncomfortable, as it may lead to conflict or disappointment. But Manson insists that the discomfort of saying no is far preferable to the regret of living a life based on other people's expectations. Manson uses the story of the Japanese emperor Hirohito to illustrate the importance of accepting failure. During World War II, Hirohito made the unprecedented decision to surrender to the Allies, ending the war and saving millions of lives. This act was seen as a sign of weakness by some, but Manson interprets it as a courageous acceptance of reality. By letting go of ego and pride, Hirohito was able to prioritize what truly mattered, the well-being of his people. This example underscores the book's message that sometimes the most meaningful choices come from accepting defeat and moving forward. The subtle art of not giving a fuck also delves into the nature of pain and suffering. Manson draws from Buddhist philosophy, which teaches that suffering is inevitable, but our relationship to suffering determines how much it affects us. By choosing our struggles wisely, we can find meaning even in hardship. Manson recounts the story of Pete Best, the original drummer for the Beatles, who was replaced just before the band achieved fame. Rather than becoming bitter, Best found happiness in his post-Beatles life, demonstrating that suffering can lead to growth when we let go of attachment to outcomes. The book challenges the reader to confront uncomfortable truths. Manson writes that denial is a common defense mechanism, preventing us from facing reality. Whether it's in relationships, careers, or personal growth, denial keeps us stuck. By embracing honesty, even when it's painful, we can break free from self-deception and make better choices. Another recurring idea is that uncertainty is a fundamental part of life. Manson argues that the search for certainty, believing we must always have the answers, is misguided. Instead, he encourages readers to embrace doubt and curiosity. By admitting that we don't know everything, we remain open to growth and learning. This humility is essential for personal development. Manson also discusses the importance of boundaries. In relationships, he writes, setting clear boundaries is crucial for mutual respect and intimacy. Without boundaries, we risk losing ourselves in the process of pleasing others. Boundaries allow us to communicate our needs and values, fostering healthier connections. The book's tone is humorous and direct, but its insights are grounded in psychological research and philosophy. Manson cites studies on happiness and fulfillment, noting that people who prioritize intrinsic values, such as personal growth and relationships, tend to experience greater well-being. He cautions against the trap of comparison, which is exacerbated by social media. When we compare ourselves to others, we lose sight of our own journey and values. The subtle art of not giving a fuck is not about apathy or nihilism. It's about caring deeply, but only about the things that matter. Manson writes that we must choose our struggles because life is inherently difficult. By accepting this truth, we can stop chasing happiness and instead find meaning in the process of living. Manson offers practical advice for putting these principles into action. He suggests making a list of things you care about and evaluating whether they align with your values. If not, it's time to let them go. He encourages readers to embrace vulnerability, to admit when they are wrong, and to seek feedback. Growth comes from facing discomfort, not avoiding it. The book also emphasizes the importance of taking risks. Manson warns against the trap of always playing it safe, which can lead to stagnation. By stepping outside our comfort zone, we open ourselves to new experiences and opportunities for growth. Failure is inevitable, but it's also a necessary part of learning. Manson's writing is filled with anecdotes and humor, but his message is serious. He challenges readers to reflect on what they give a fuck about and to make conscious choices about where to invest their time and energy. This requires courage, honesty, and the willingness to face discomfort. He concludes by reminding readers that life is short, and our legacy will be shaped by what we choose to care about. By letting go of superficial concerns and embracing values that are authentic and meaningful, we can live more fulfilling lives. The subtle art of not giving a fuck is a call to action. It asks us to question our assumptions, to embrace our limitations, and to find strength in vulnerability. It's a book that rejects the false promise of constant happiness and instead invites us to find meaning in the messy, unpredictable reality of life. Ultimately, the book's wisdom lies in its simplicity. Manson does not offer easy answers or quick fixes. Instead, he asks us to accept that life is hard, that pain is inevitable, and that happiness is found not in avoiding problems, but in choosing better ones. By giving fewer fucks about things that don't matter, we can give more attention to what does. Manson's philosophy is liberating. It encourages us to let go of perfectionism, to stop chasing unattainable standards, and to embrace our flaws. It's about accepting ourselves as we are, while striving to become better in ways that are meaningful to us. In summary, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is a guide to living authentically, choosing your values wisely, and finding meaning in the midst of life's challenges. It's a reminder that we have the power to decide what matters and to let go of the rest. By doing so, we can live with greater freedom, resilience, and joy. So, as you move forward, consider what you care about. Ask yourself whether those things align with your deepest values. And remember, the subtle art is not about giving no fucks at all, but about giving a fuck only about what truly matters. The rest is just noise. Let it go and focus on living a life that is true to you.